All right. As people are coming in, we just want to say good afternoon to everyone and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of Work, How Education Can Prepare Students for Tomorrow's Jobs. I am Charlita Richardson, the Executive Director for the Florida College Access Network and your host for today's session. We are so excited to have each of you joining us for today, and we want to take an opportunity to thank our sponsor, CareerSource Florida, for their generous support of this webinar. A few quick housekeeping items just for today. First, we welcome your questions. Please take an opportunity throughout the webinar to submit them in the box, which you should see on the right side of your screen if you are viewing from your desktop computer. We will also allot time at the end of today's webinar to answer questions, but you can submit them at any time. And in fact, I encourage you to do so. Second, please share what you're learning on your favorite social media platform. You see our Twitter handle at FL College Access. Please use hashtag FCAN or hashtag Talent Strong Florida or Talent Strong FL. And we want to definitely hear what's resonating with you throughout today. And finally, this webinar is being recorded and all materials will be made available within 1 week of the recording. For those of you who are new to FCAN's work, I want to take an opportunity to share a little bit about our background of who we are. FCAN's mission is to lead the collaborative movement to ensure that every Floridian achieves an education beyond high school and a rewarding career. Our vision is to see a Florida working together where education is the pathway to economic mobility for all. And we do this through 3 primary ways and bodies of work. First, our local college access networks, they serve as a cross-sector coalition of leaders that collaborate to remove barriers and provide more support for student success. Secondly, FCAN publishes research and data on evidence-based practices and policy opportunities to strengthen Florida's talent pool. And thirdly, our statewide initiatives. FCAN coordinates 4 college-ready initiatives from Apply Yourself Florida to Planet Florida, the Florida FAFSA Challenge, as well as College Decision Day. And we operate these initiatives to provide schools and community organizations with the free resources to help students continue their education after high school. Now, in these 3 bodies of work, we've identified our 7 conditions of success with the support of collaborators in the community. Our 7 conditions can be found on our website, and they're also shared on the screen. More importantly is that today's webinar are great examples of many of these conditions, and particularly the condition of clear information and guidance, multiple pathways to success, and lifelong learning. So let's begin a little bit about the future of work. In order to prepare for the future of work, it means that Florida must be talent strong. FCAN launched the Talent Strong Florida campaign that complements Florida's Sell to 60 goal to strengthen Florida's workforce and ensure that the state is ready for the economy of the future. This campaign, which launched late last year, focuses on this statewide goal, which is to increase the percentage of Floridians ages 25 to 64 with a high-value post-secondary certificate, degree, or training experience to 60% by the year 2030. Being talent strong means that we must prepare our future workforce with the skills and education necessary to remain competitive in the global economy. Being talent strong must also means that we must ensure that there's prosperity for Florida families and our state in good times and bad. And being talent strong means that we must build an economy that is more resilient to recover from inevitable disruptions. There are several factors that actually impact the future of work today, but today we'll focus on 3 primary areas during our discussion: automation, the change in required skills, both resilient skills and hard skills, and then the educational demands of some of our fastest growing industries. While job automation has clearly been on the horizon for some time now, in the aftermath of COVID-19, some jobs are at risk of disappearing entirely, and Floridians need to prepare for those jobs of the future. Record unemployment creates a demand for connecting jobs with citizens, but it also means that many companies will simply not rehire to existing levels. Instead, they may choose to downsize, right size, shift to automation, or actually pick some combination of those. Now, nearly 50% of the total US jobs are at risk of automation in the next several decades, according to the McKinsey Global Institute. And what we've discovered and learned is that COVID-19 is in fact accelerating this in some industries. Take, for example, the hospitality and leisure make up 16% of Florida's economy, compared to an average of 13.3% nationally. This sector lost more jobs than any other during the height of the pandemic. And in fact, it led to a 3% reduction in force. It is now more evident that the hospitality and tourism industries are particularly at risk of losing jobs due to automation. Now, while some jobs may disappear because of automation, research also shows that automation occurs at the level of specific work tasks and not at the level of whole jobs. The World Economic Forum published a Future of Jobs survey report in 2018 that highlighted that automation will vastly improve productivity and augment the work of the employees. On the chart on the screen, you can see how the increased usage of machines and automation has reduced the working time for individuals. This trend is definitely not new. And in fact, if we consider how the roles have changed through the years, take, for example, if you think about the robotic medical tools used by doctors and surgeons, or even the search engine technology that allow researchers to find more relevant information. Those type of tools in increased machinery leads to less time from a human perspective. Now, you'll also notice that how some tasks may have remained overwhelmingly human, such as communicating and interacting. Machines simply can't do that for us. Coordinating, developing, managing, and advising, and reasoning and decision making. Now, moving beyond automation and skills, the growth of occupations also play an important role in the future of work. Labor market data affirms that all of Florida's fastest growing occupations require at least a technical certificate for an entry-level job. It's never been more evident than before that an education beyond high school is required to prepare for these jobs and provide resiliency to weather the future economic downturns. Now that I've provided a brief introduction of this topic, I want to introduce our wonderful panelists for today. First, breaking through barriers and making history, Madeline Pumariega is the first female president to lead Miami-Dade College, the institution she attended decades earlier as a student athlete. Her passion for innovation in higher education was born out of her own experiences, first as a student and then as a longtime administrator at MDC. President Pumariega prioritizes working with business partners to identify the skills needed in key industries and tailoring higher education programs to match those needs. Her transformative approach accelerates the ability of graduates to enter the workforce immediately upon the completion of their coursework. Prior to becoming MDC's president, Pumariega was appointed the first female and Hispanic chancellor of the Florida college system. In that role, she designed and implemented strategies to keep college accessible and affordable for Floridians, especially in high-demand job fields. In 2019, she became the executive vice president and provost of Tallahassee Community College. She also previously served as president of Take Stock in Children. President Pumariega has a passion for ensuring that students have a path toward upward economic mobility through educational opportunities. Our next panelist, Nicole Daggs, is Vice President in Human Resources for Florida Power and Light, where she plays a key role in managing human capital primarily through talent management, leadership development, and organizational effectiveness. Ms. Daggs has the accountability for corporate labor relations, corporate safety, and learning and development through Next Era University. Prior to this role, Ms. Daggs held various positions at Next Era Energy Resources, including Vice President of Portfolio Management and Business Operations, and Senior Counsel, Trading and Origination, to name a few. Prior to joining the company, Nicole actually practiced law for more than a decade in both in-house and outside counsel, with a focus on transactional matters in the energy sector, drafting and negotiating agreements for power, gas, coal, oil, and financial products. She has also taught numerous courses for several trade associations on related topics and is a frequent speaker at industry conferences and events. Ms. Daggs holds a Bachelor of Science from the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service and a Juris Doctor from the Georgetown University Law Center. She is a native of West Palm Beach, but currently resides in Jupiter with her husband and 2 sons. And finally, our next panelist, and also providing our opening remarks, is Michelle Dennard. She's the president and CEO of Career Source Florida, Inc., the nonprofit public-private policy and investment board of business and government leaders charged with guiding workforce development for the state of Florida. Ms. Dennard joined the organization in November 2014 as Vice President of Policy. She provided workforce policy guidance to the Career Source Florida Board of Directors and the Board's Strategic Policy Council. Ms. Dennard led the development of Florida's unified plan for implementing the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, the federal legislation that modernizes states' workforce systems through a market-driven approach to better serve businesses, workers, and job seekers. Through strong leadership and a collaborative spirit, she engaged workforce and education partners to develop a plan that delivers customer-driven solutions for the 21st century and beyond. An attorney and member of the Florida Bar, Ms. Dennard has more than 10 years of experience in workforce and economic development. Prior to joining Career Source Florida, she served as the director for the Division of Strategic Business Development at the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Ms. Dennard lives in Tallahassee with her husband and son and is a graduate of the Florida State University College of Business and earned her Juris Doctorate degree from the Florida State University College of Law. It is my pleasure to welcome our panelists and thank them for being with us today. And I would now like to turn the controls over to Michelle.
Thank you. I am so pleased to be here with all of you today. Again, Michelle Dennard, President and CEO of Career Source Florida. And Career Source Florida, here we go. There we go. Career Source Florida is our state's workforce policy and investment board. We're a business-led board appointed by the governor, charged with creating strategic policy for our workforce and enabling economic prosperity for all Floridians. Our vision is that Florida will be the global leader for talent, recognizing that Florida plays a role on a global stage. And our mission to connect employers with qualified skilled talent and Floridians with employment and career development opportunities to achieve economic prosperity. And what's so important about that mission is that it begins with the focus on employers. To enable good jobs and meaningful careers, we have to have meaningful relationships with employers, but we're focused on economic prosperity for the Floridians we work with. And one of the best parts of my job, I get to work with 24 local workforce boards across the state who are catalysts in their community, innovators, thought leaders for assisting individuals to be connected with employment opportunities, engaging businesses to help deliver the talent they'll need today and to meet their future talent needs. And all that to say, our mission, our strong network, critical in helping Floridians find those meaningful careers, asks us to consider not just the first opportunity for a job seeker, but an entire career pathway. It asks us to think about the skills a person grows over time, not just that first degree or first certification. And we also have to consider, what if we improve the opportunities for all job seekers, including those with disabilities, veterans, and individuals on public assistance to find meaningful careers? And that's the kind of transformational thinking that are part of the kind of conversations that we have today. Path to prosperity for Floridians through connecting them to job opportunities, skill development opportunities, leading towards that meaningful career. And being transformational in this way requires us to work together. It truly does take all of us to pursue economic prosperity. It takes our workforce network, our education professionals, our economic development friends, business, industry, community leaders. It's our responsibility to think about these holistic opportunities together. So as we work across organizations and sectors to help Floridians find good jobs that turn into meaningful careers, all with that eye towards economic mobility, the Career Source Florida Board of Directors is driven by data. when establishing policy and making investments. And even just a few weeks ago, when laying out priorities for the coming year, there was a lot of conversation about the data you see here. And what I want to draw your attention to are the impacts by age over the last year in labor force participation rates and in unemployment. And what this shows us is that those Floridians aged 16 to 24 have been disproportionately impacted since the beginning of the pandemic, with the labor force participation rates dropping over 3% for those aged 16 to 19 and by 6.4% for those aged 20 to 24. And you can also see the unemployment rate for those age brackets rose significantly as well. So this demonstrated change gives us an opportunity. And knowing that disproportionate impact, we knew from a Career Source Florida Network standpoint that raising awareness around the services available for youth, including internships, career exploration, and summer youth programs, just to name a few. So we recently conducted a statewide research study to better understand Florida's youth population, and we consider those youth ages 16 to 24. We specifically wanted to understand the awareness, the knowledge, and the perception of the usage of the workforce system services. We wanted to know more about their specific job employment needs and to understand the source of information and assistance used by these youth so that we can better serve them. What we found has given us insight into what motivates that population, where the current gaps are, and what the goals for the future are for that population, how we can help them reach those goals. From our research, we learned which industries our future workforce is most interested in. While the majority of the participants indicated they want a career that's fulfilling, we learned that the top 3 industries of interest are healthcare, arts and entertainment, and IT. And 14% of survey participants answered they wanted a career in healthcare, which is great given the current growing needs in that sector. And 13% of survey participants answered with a career in the arts and entertainment industry, which is also growing but presents some unique challenges as well. And 8% wanted a career in IT. So we know that 2 of these industries have a lot of potential for growth and training opportunities and are areas of focus for much of the state. Healthcare and IT obviously leading the way there. We also learned how our young adult job seekers are feeling about their future and what kind of confidence are they building in the job market, especially given the disruptions over the past year. So it's not surprising to see some mixed results. We know that many individuals are thinking about their jobs and job security in different ways today. We found the subset that is most confident about their future are individuals in technical schools. And we think this has a lot to do with the fact that they're in areas of study that are in demand and align perfectly with the career field they're going into. So their outcomes are very tangible. They know what they're working towards. On the contrary, the group that was least confident in their future are individuals with bachelor's degree, which is likely due to the uncertainty of the job market as a result of COVID-19 implications. And this shows us that there are opportunities to provide the education and training resources to prepare this audience for their future careers and ensure they're successful in finding and sustaining jobs. There's an opportunity for us to prove the value of that degree program with the student, providing them with real life examples of what their educational attainment can do for them. And with FCAN in a leadership role, we've had a lot of conversation around the future of work. And today, the future of work has arrived. Across the country, people are working in different ways, at more places, and in varied kinds of jobs. We know that employability skills or life skills, now often called resilient skills like problem solving, creativity, and communication, are more essential than ever. And now we see firsthand, as was mentioned earlier, that automation, information technology, and connectivity are disrupting jobs from all sectors and creating new ones that we hadn't even envisioned. And we've even seen the importance of addressing inclusive recovery and helping pathways to prosperity for those who are underserved. The past year has forced us to consider how we educate and train Floridians and how we adapt our models for businesses, products, and services. It's led us to consider what must be done now to weather ever-shifting and dramatic changes to help Floridians get back to work, to help businesses recover, and chart paths to economic stability and growth. Our challenge then, and this is why we're here today, is to harness these disruptions into opportunities for Florida's workforce that then empowers the industry diversifications that we've been working towards. So what skills are most important to drive economic success? MZ, an international data resource, recently released a report titled Resilient Skills, the survivor skills that the class of COVID-19 should pursue. And what that report points out is that navigating and succeeding in a COVID-19 driven recession and recovery will be all about the skills that have remained or increased in demand. Resilient skills. They're also calling them survivor skills, which I think is very interesting. So since the last year has been riddled with unpredictability, it seems every day we learn something new and creative solutions to problems rule the day. But the thing that remains consistent are these skills. This slide shows you the top resilient employability skills, life skills, based on the number of times that they're requested in job postings. Communications is requested in 35% of job postings, followed by management at 19%. And what's interesting when you pull together some of this data is that 30% of job postings ask for at least 2 of these skills, while 84% list at least 1. We conducted our own research on this topic a few years ago, and the results aren't different. But what we know is that the need for these skills have been enhanced during the pandemic and demonstrated in a strong recovery economy. These are skills that are in demand no matter the industry, and they can be transferred when a new career pathway opens up and they serve an individual for a lifetime. We know that meaningful collaboration between systems is ultimately what are going to best serve students and Floridians, both to address the opportunities for young people and to continue our emphasis on resilient life skills. And I'm thrilled to be part of this conversation today with such esteemed and wonderful panelists. I'm happy to take any questions, or we can dive right into the panel.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to jump in and dive right into this panel, and then we'll go right into questions from the audience as well. So audience, if you all have questions, please, by all means, post them into the question and answer box. So we're going to jump into the panel. And again, we have Nicole Daggs, Michelle Dennard, and Madeline Pumariega. And so panelists, the first question I'm going to ask, and anyone can jump in or I can pick, considering that the rapidly changing workforce that we have, why is today's topic so important? And you've heard some of Michelle's presentation as well as a little bit from FCAN. So why do you think today's topic is important to what we're doing? Stop.
Well, Charlita, I'll take a stab at it, and I think maybe Nicole unmuted at the same time as well. But I think you opened up with talent strong. The reason I think that it's important to what Michelle is saying is because it aligns talent to industry needs, and for the states and communities that get talent right, they're going to win the economic development, race, if you will, because talent is that economic driver, particularly as we look at communities in post-pandemic recovery efforts, as we look at communities in terms of focusing on prosperity and pathways to prosperity. But when you sit and you talk to any business leader, what probably threatens them the most, other than complete disruption to their business environment, is their talent acquisition. So I think that's why this conversation is so important. And I'll pitch back over to Nicole, which I know was unmuting at the same time.
Thanks, Madeline. I agree wholeheartedly with what you said, as well as Charlita. The other thing that I would add is that collaboration between private and public is so important. And that's why I think that today's topic is really critical. Madeline, you know that we have a program with Miami-Dade focused on cybersecurity. We also have a program with Indian River State College focused on solar energy field construction. And we're looking for other opportunities to collaborate as well. I think those connections really go to Talent Strong. How do we make sure that our education system is actually preparing individuals who are going to be ready for the jobs that are available now, and those jobs that will continue to shift and change as we look forward to the future?
Awesome. That is so critical. And I think, Nicole and Madeline, you're both kind of hitting on the importance of really being aware of what's happening in the economy, as well as, collaboration is key. Michelle, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything, although your remarks kind of highlighted it, but
They did, but I think my fellow panelists made some great points, and it's all about building competitive communities for Florida. Talent is our economic development currency. So to the extent we can help folks find a meaningful career through the right educational attainment, we're making our communities more competitive, thus encouraging prosperity for everyone in Florida.
Awesome. Thank you. Madeline, I'm going to come right back to you. Earlier, I referenced specifically the McKinsey report and that it shows that the 50% of the jobs are at risk of automation. Specifically, as president of one of the largest colleges in the country, and you recognize these statistics, how are you ensuring that automation is actually taken into consideration within your college degree programs?
So it's a great question. And I think that really accelerated it. When you go back, I think it was 2019, and you read a Future Proof, the Robots Proof book by the president of Northeastern University. He talked about those skills, those future, and I like to call them future-proof skills. Michelle just called them resilient skills. And that means that they, to me, are transferable skills. It really doesn't matter what job you leave and you take, your ability to communicate, design thinking, emotional intelligence, creativity, leadership, teamwork. Time and time again, we hear from business leaders, because Nicole mentioned how we have that partnership with FBNL. We build our programs and all of our workforce programs with those business partners. CareerSource did a survey with DEO a couple of years back, and why were positions being left open in business leaders? It was what they called then those employability skills. They've evolved into all of these words, soft employabilities. But the point is that that's integrated throughout our curriculum. And so that's, whether you're majoring in education, healthcare, engineering or technology fields. But the other part I think is important, and it was in the survey, as Michelle was talking about, for students that know what their purpose is, they're much more optimistic about the outlook of a job. So if you're in a nursing program, you know that when you finish, you're going to graduate. Well, what we've done is we've just partnered with IBM, invested $10 million at Miami-Dade College in data science, so that we really look at data science across all disciplines. We're working on a partnership around artificial intelligence. AI is going to change the way that we do everything, the way that we work, we sleep, we play, we access healthcare. How do we integrate that in all of the programs of study, in addition to creating the talent that companies need today with those skill sets that we talked about, the future proof, but then the applied technology skill sets around data science, AI, cybersecurity, business and innovation. So those are just a couple of ways. We're incredibly proud of a partnership that with Amazon Web Services, and this is how the world of work is changing. Typically, there were positions that were four-year degree positions. For the first time, they've hired students from our associate programs and provided internships from students in our certification programs. And that's how the ecosystem of credentials and diversifying is changing. I really think we're moving from just credit accumulation to skills acquisition. And that's what businesses are going to look at. And I think higher education has to partner with our business leaders to make sure we're aligning those skills to the talent that they need.
Awesome. I love hearing about that, Madeline, and then really just hearing about the skills acquisition and how that leads to, essentially building up your business and partnering with your business partners. And so, Nicole, that makes me think about specifically with Florida Power and Light and looking at automation and even just considering how you make sure your employees have the skills. What additional training programs or preparation are you all offering to employees to make sure they're able to adjust to automated roles, or even just the different skills that are needed that can be transferable? In Madeline's terms, I'll say the future-proof skills. I love that term.
That's great. I really appreciated Madeline's comments. And, Charlita, I think that you mentioned at the beginning of this that automation isn't taking over jobs, but it's enhancing work tasks. And that's what we're certainly seeing at Florida Power and Light. So what we're focused on internally, you mentioned that we have a Next Era University. And so Next Era University helps our employees at Florida Power and Light as well. And they focus on skill sets. How do we continue to drive the accumulation of new schools that line up nicely with the objectives of the business? So we have a program where we help leaders work with their employees to identify what are those skills that they're not quite proficient in that they will need in order to continue to perform their jobs really at a high level. We have a couple of examples. Our engineers participate in a program called Ready Now, and that's training that's focused on helping them to advance their skill sets to support complex power plants. We also train our folks kind of like the future-proofing skills that you mentioned. We encourage Six Sigma training, and that training is really focused on how do we review our processes, how do we look for opportunities to do things better, really using that critical thinking, problem solving, again, those skills that that Michelle mentioned earlier as well. We also work with our line workers to make sure that they are staying abreast of the latest technology. We just launched a drone program where we train some of our line workers to use drones to survey our lines for damage or things that are about to require maintenance. So those are just a couple of examples of how we try to incorporate ongoing training to address the needs of the business.
That's really awesome, just to really hear the impact that Florida Power and Light is having with their employees. And I'm sure other companies are taking advantage of those opportunities as well. I'm going to actually switch the topic a little bit from automation, because I'm sure we can talk about automation all day long because it's here to stay. But Michelle, coming to you, you shared really some great information in your opening remarks. And one thing that's certain is that degrees play an important role for economic resiliency. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work of Career Source Florida, especially when it relates to like your Finish Line grants, and then even what your regional Career Source offices, I saw you said 24 of them across the state, but what are they doing to support this whole lifelong learning to meet the demands of our future workforce?
One of the great things about the Career Source Florida network is there are services that fit anybody's needs. We have services to youth, as I mentioned earlier, but anyone at any point in their career, whether their job has been impacted by COVID-19, or maybe they see new opportunities in Florida's recovery to change career paths, or if they're later on in life and wondering what might be out there for them, there is something that can be tailor fit, customized for that individual. That may involve some career counseling, some skills assessments. Something that we've seen as individuals in the hospitality and service industry have been disproportionately impacted over the last year is the ability to assess those skills. And those folks have some of those best transferable life resilience skills of any sector. And those individuals have experience in communication and listening and resiliency and showing up to work every day. How can we harness those skills, help them assess them, and then provide them with a training opportunity to another career pathway? There's also opportunities for those who are later on in life, perhaps to come back. Maybe there's a new training opportunity. We also have those services that could be tailored for businesses as well. We know that businesses have many times had to change the way they deliver their products and services. And sometimes they need some help upskilling, cross-training, reskilling their employees. So Career Source Florida has state-level training grant programs that can be customized to a business that promote employee retention. Let's let those businesses have access to training that can have those employees learn new skills, help their business grow and thrive. So really there are opportunities across the board. And even if there isn't a service that's directly available by one of our federally allowed workforce programs, the workforce boards can also be connectors in the community, and they work in partnership and collaboration with the state colleges in their community and the technical colleges. I think that's the strength of all of us being in this together, is that the hub and spoke model of you come to any of us, we're going to work together to find the best pathway for that learner, for that Floridian.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. And I think one thing I want to just pick up on and highlight is that you mentioned the piece of the business piece component of it. All too often, when we're talking about the future of work, we're talking about how students and individuals can prepare, but we also need to make sure our businesses are being prepared and how do they then manage and handle that transition. Um, Madeline, I'm going to come right back to you really quickly. So, yeah, I mentioned the 7 conditions of success that FCAN has, and one of them is really focused on lifelong learning and the importance of, no degree is one and done, no credential, et cetera. We have to continue to promote lifelong learning so that we can advance throughout careers. So, how does Miami-Dade College encourage the importance of this continuing your education and building your skills? And you've kind of hit on some of this, but even after you've kind of finished that first degree or that credential, as Michelle said, those people that may have decided they want to do something different in life and come back and try something different.
So it's a great question, and I'll frame it if we think about what happened in the pandemic, right? And you shared some of the numbers. If you were in the knowledge economy, you picked up your laptop, you went home to work. If you were in the service economy, you stayed unemployed. And so what we did do, I think, as a state, and we did really well, is build partnerships and coalition. And like, for example, one of the partnerships we built was with the Florida Department of Education with rapid response credentialing grants program. So not only at Miami-Dade College, but across all of our colleges, we put together programs that could give those employees looking to retool to get back into the workforce right away, programs as short as 18 weeks. Like I know at Tallahassee Community College, in those programs, Kim Moore embedded some of those resilience skills that Michelle talked about in her presentation. So not just getting maybe that welding certificate or the truck driving certificate, but then also getting communication skills, micro credentials in there. We did the same thing around digital marketing certificates. Everything turned online, social media. It became the primary platform, not in-person communication, but really your communication. So, we put out a certification program that could stack on anyone's credential that they currently had. I think about what the mayor of Miami-Dade County is doing now, and it's a partnership with CareerSource and Miami-Dade College as she launches Renew 305. And it's the path for the community to thrive in, post-COVID. And one of that is about upskilling and leveling up, and then working with CareerSource and Miami-Dade College in developing those programs. And those programs really, as I said earlier, you start to blur the line between just an accumulation of credit and skills acquisition. And you do that. So people say, well, how do you do it? Industry certifications are pathways to do that. College credit certificates could be. So it's about stackable credentials, because I think that lifelong learning, we've always known, no matter what, as long as you are always learning and you stay curious, you're probably relevant in the workplace. Your skills are relevant. I think that lifelong learning is going to take a different turn as we continue to build a knowledge economy. And it's going to be not motivated by your thirst of knowledge and truth, but by the need to keep building skills that change much faster today because of the way that we adopt technology and really the impact of automation to what we're doing. So I would say, like kids level up in games, I think that we are going to have to always be leveling up and upskilling to stay competitive in the economic space.
That's right. Upskilling and leveling up. I love it. So when we think about upskilling, Nicole, when you think about that, what additional skill gaps are you actually seeing at Florida Power and Light? And then how do you think partners should direct their energy in closing these gaps with students in particular? Especially if we're saying we need to make sure that people are leveling up and continuing how to progress in life.
Right. Madeline, I love that leveling up. I have a 13-year-old who's a gamer, so I hear that a lot. I'll have to use it in the workplace now too. But thanks for the question, Charlita. I think that, I'll talk about the skills that we would encourage, focus on. But I think what you mentioned earlier and that all of us have talked about that collaboration between public and private, having that ongoing conversation about what the needs are, that will help ensure that we're closing those gaps, and also ensuring that we're helping, our students and others who are looking for new opportunities in the workforce, ensure that they're preparing. Some of the skills that we think that there are gaps around here at FPL would include some of those, again, resilient skills or future-proofing skills that we've talked about: communications, critical thinking, problem solving, and the one that we like to use here a lot is being agile. And not just the methodology, but really figuring out how to adapt, how to bob and weave. And that's certainly what many of us have learned in the last year with the pandemic. So that's critical on the foundational side. When I think about the technical side, I think Madeline mentioned a number of them: data analytics, artificial intelligence, also supervisory controls and data acquisition. It's kind of the when, where, and why that we use here at FPL for where do we need to focus for maintenance or preventative maintenance. But I think that SCADA is something that's used by a number of industries. It's technical based, and there's just not enough when we look at the skill sets out there. We just don't find enough people who are really well versed and able to dive into that area. So I think it's a combination of those technical and those foundational skills.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, Michelle, I'm going to switch again on you. I switched topics on you when you mentioned and talked about the 16 to 24 in your presentation, in your opening remarks. I would love to hear a little bit more about potential apprenticeship opportunities and what resources are available to high school students that can kind of assist them on this path of job training, shadowing, internships. And so I'm on a question. This is a question from the audience, and I definitely wanted to make sure we address that, especially when we're talking about that population.
And it's an important population to reach early and often. I think we're working to define career exploration opportunities. And a lot of times our local workforce boards have opportunities to share with those young people what jobs are available in your own area, in your own hometown. Sometimes it can be illuminating for the individual. They may not know that there are opportunities that fit squarely within their interest level and provide fantastic career pathways right in their own backyard. There's also opportunities for alignment. Many of our local workforce boards have relationships with the school districts for internship opportunities. Again, connecting those students with opportunities in their businesses in their area who are presented with opportunities for internships. Also, summer youth programs are offered across the state with your local workforce boards that provide them with, again, career exploration opportunities, some early resume and interview assistance. I think being able to provide some career counseling opportunities early can help sharpen that career path and awareness of opportunities in their areas. But the workforce boards are a great resource to let them know what jobs are available in your communities. They're the ones who are working with businesses every day to understand, what do you have open today? Where do you think your business is going to lead to? And then how can we match that up with opportunities for students at educational institutions?
Awesome. Thank you. So Madeline, this question may be for you. Do you think that getting an AS in a tech degree is a better option than a BS due to types of jobs that will be that students will be pursuing, individuals? But it's open for anybody. But
so I'd say, let's go to the data, right? I think when 2009, of the 11.6 million jobs that we recovered, 11.3 million went to some college. So what we do know is that a post-secondary credential beyond high school is going to be critical to being in a position to earn, really life-sustaining wages. If you think about it that way. I do think you've got to, as a person, what are you talented at? What's your interest? What do you have some type of passion around? And then if we can drive and give you those skill sets, it's got to be one of the decision factors of what you pursue to study. I can tell you the World Health Organization says we'll add 40 million more healthcare workers in the world by 2030. So I'd hedge my bets there. But boy, if you don't have empathy and not really interested in work, treating people, that might not be the path, right? And so I think it's about just being open to what are the opportunities there, and really making sure it's not one end all. I do think it is continuing to build on the associates into a bachelor's of applied science, or whether you start in an industry certification, or even our career technical education programs that today have pathways that let you continue. You can start as a welder and end up in associates building construction program that goes into a bachelor's in building and construction. So I think it's being open to that and growing that way.
Awesome. Thank you. So earlier I heard the reference to social media in someone's comments. I can't remember exactly who, but one of the audience members said, how do you see social media influencing the future of work? And is it time to consider social media influencing a job?
Well, I think it does every day. To me, I think even about the way we do career connections and career services, both, Michelle talked a little bit about what Career Source does at its one-stop centers. Any one of our state colleges, including Miami-Dade College, has a career center. I think social media is transforming that sector of what we do. Students aren't necessarily going to go into a career services office today to find a lead on that job. They're probably going to find the lead via social media. And so I think that's an area that I believe is disrupting what our norms were, on how you do career services and you do employment matchmaking and internship opportunities. I think the flow of information is much more free flowing. Like maybe Nicole before, if she needed an internship at FP&L, she would only come to the college or Indian River State College. Today, she goes up the handshake, it's there. She puts it out on social media, and she now casts her net worldwide, or certainly across the entire state of Florida. And so I think that's just one example of, I see social media really being good about accelerating connections and accelerating opportunities for individuals. Michelle, I'll pitch it to you.
Yeah, if I can just jump in there, it definitely is changing the world of work. I mean, there are jobs that exist today by virtue of social media, like influencers. And it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow to say that that's a job, but it clearly is. So if that's a person's goal, then it's on us to ask, how can we provide that individual with entrepreneurial skills training? How can we be sure that if they want to be a task-based worker or their own boss, that we can provide them with the skills to be successful in that regard? We have seen an increase in gig work, platform-based work, task-based work, which is not new, but the speed at which individuals are connecting, talent is connecting with people who want that service, want that task done through those platforms, is much quicker today than it ever has been before. So I think the opportunities that exist within the rise of the gig economy, coupled with the right kind of entrepreneurial skills training, because I don't think anyone would argue that entrepreneurialism and owning your own business is clearly a job. How can we continue to fuel the entrepreneurial spirits in our students and in our Floridians?
So I would just add to the point that Madeline mentioned earlier, I think that social media certainly does expand the universe of candidates. And it also makes a pathway for candidates that might not be your traditional candidates. With social media, you're able to get really a more fulsome view of a candidate who might have on-the-job experience, might not have a degree, might be in the process of obtaining a certificate. So that's what I mean when I say candidates that might not have your traditional skill sets that you're looking for a particular role. So the ability of social media to connect employers with candidates that don't match their expectations or their normal expectations, I think that's pretty significant and is changing how all employers think about opportunities. It's certainly impacting how we think about our own job descriptions here. We've recently had discussions about, maybe we don't need a bachelor's degree. Maybe we need to be talking about this role in terms of experience. So I think that social media has a real role to play in connecting those candidates with employers.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for that. That is very insightful. When we look at stackable credentials, someone's asked, what are the ideal stackable credentials in today's workforce? And we talk about, of course, stacking from certificate to a degree, et cetera. And then how do we hopefully align programs in the community to match with that?
So, probably the best example of stackable credentials is nursing, right? You can become a CNA. A CNA goes into a LPN, licensed practical nurse. We take some of those credits into the RN, registered nurse program. You go into the BSN and up to MSN, right? So that one builds on the other. That's probably the industry that has for the prospective student or employee, it's really clear. It gets dicey when you get into other areas, but I think around cloud computing, you're starting to see that. I think that the wave of digital apprenticeships, I think that the certification ecosystem is really the new digital apprenticeship. So what do I mean by that? Industry certifications in cloud computing. So you get that industry cert, you already can demonstrate to an employer like FP&L that you understand data and you understand how it sits in the cloud and how you extract it, import it, and analyze it. So that's some of the basic skills. They know you don't have the math, a computer science degree, but you've got the foundational knowledge. That goes right into an associate's in science and cloud computing. You take that and you could build it into a bachelor's of applied science in data science. That goes into a master's. We just signed an agreement with the University of Miami about the master's program. They want our bachelor's of applied science students graduating with that data science degree. Those are ways that stack. I mentioned the welding or trades one as well. And those are just some examples of stackable credentials.
Awesome. Thank you. And Michelle or Nicole?
And just to add that I think we're going to see kind of a rise and a new look at stackable credentials through micro-credentialing and badging. And the question is, what's the best example? What's the highest use? I think it's going to depend on what the business is telling us. Madeline mentioned earlier Amazon Workforce Services, who has a robust badging and micro-credentialing process embedded in their training programs. Because it's of value to that business, these stops along the way that they can demonstrate a certain set of skills earned and then demonstrated by this micro-credential or badge. So I think we're just starting to see kind of the conversation around badging and micro-credentialing. But I think the opportunities to be able to demonstrate skills associated with those that are meaningful to a business is certainly an opportunity for all of us to consider as we think about what the future of training and work looks like.
So another example I would just add is when we think about technicians and looking at craft and technical work, we used to look for electrical technicians or just mechanical technicians or instrumentation technicians. And now we're looking at something that, called, mechatronics, which is really someone that's skilled across a number of different areas and can fill in, any number of roles that, have some similar and basic skill sets in mind. So I think that there are going to be more opportunities like that where employers are looking for someone who's multi-skilled. Employers are no longer really interested, I think, in just finding, someone with a very specific skill set that can only do, one or two or limited tasks. So again, looking for opportunities that support multi-crafts, I think that will be, very important going forward.
Awesome. As we are slowly or quickly winding up, but I'm going to throw this question out, Michelle. Someone asked specifically, in your presentation, you referenced that bachelor degree holders were being some of the lowest in confidence of gaining employment. Are you aware of any strategic funding plans for add-on or certificate type programs that would enhance someone with a bachelor's degree to increase their skills?
I think those opportunities exist all across the state. It likely depends on the educational institution you're working with, and it's incumbent on that individual, right? Is that marrying up those technical with those bachelor level skills is an opportunity, I think, to strengthen your marketability and probably your career pathway as it moves forward. The Career Source Florida Board has not specifically invested in marrying up those two, but I think there are some significant opportunities in doing so.
And I would say probably across most state colleges, but at least at Miami-Dade College, we've got some financial incentive programs for individuals to come up and level up and get into those industry certifications, micro credentials, and badging. And I think that that's the part, the new resume of the future is really almost a digital resume where you can demonstrate not just those traditional things that you find in the resume and your experiences, but that you also have this whole section on skills that's going to be way beyond just whether it's bilingual or computer skills, but here's all of these badges that I have, which then says to an employer, you know, this is a person who's staying curious and staying current. And that's a great way to add on to maybe a bachelor's degree in political science. You can add in these other specialty badges, if you will. And I use political science because that's mine. So I have a bachelor's in political science. My career's taken me everywhere under the sun, but I think it's, you know, about, again, continuing to stay curious, level up, and build not just your economic net, you know, your educational network, but your social network, that cultural capital, which is also so important.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to throw this one question out as we're approaching the end. Just wanted to recognize the impact of inclusion. And so how are you all incorporating disability inclusion in your services, the training and hiring? And then are there any apprenticeship programs specifically for young adults with disabilities that you're aware of?
Happy to start. I know there's lots to add probably from all the panelists on this one. The Career Source Florida Network works closely with our friends in the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation at the Department of Education. So that's a lot of words. But what it means is that an individual who needs a special accommodation to go to work can work through the Workforce Board in partnership with vocational rehabilitation to find that accommodation and help that individual be successful at work. We several examples of our local workforce boards approaching inclusive opportunities. One that is front of mind is at Career Source Central Florida, who worked with a company who needed customer service portals that were developed specifically for those who are seeing impaired. So the entire staff at this location was individuals who needed a special accommodation to be able to work with a computer, and were able to hire a significant number of individuals with a disability. But it was an easy fix for that employer, and the employer wanted to make the investment in its workforce. The return to the employer is enhanced employee retention, happy employees, greater productivity. We've also seen a rise as individuals are now many still working from home, which can be the most accommodating for an individual with a disability to work in a place that's comfortable for them and already has the accommodations that they need. So we're encouraging employers to be sure that they are taking that into account when making new hiring decisions. And we have continued to explore apprenticeship opportunities for all individuals who have a barrier to employment. And those opportunities have also started to grow, with folks understanding the imperative of approaching especially economic recovery with an inclusive standpoint.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. We are 1 minute to the hour of closing up this webinar. I want to take an opportunity again to thank our panelists. You all are fabulous, and we so appreciate your support. Thank you again to our webinar sponsor, Career Source Florida, and thank you to our attendees. If you haven't gathered anything else from this conversation today, recognizing that automation is here to stay, that collaboration is key, and that upskilling, or as Madeline has said, leveling up is so important. Being agile, as Nicole has actually referenced, and then also having multiple skills. So just remember that as you're going out and working with your students, or even for yourself. And then lastly, I will encourage each of you to please join us for future upcoming webinars and to actually sign up for our policy briefs and information. You can subscribe at floridacollegeaccess.org/subscribe. And so we look forward to having you join us for future webinars. Thank you, everyone, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the week.